Welcome to Strasbourg and our S&D group press conference this morning on a very special day for our group president, Iratxe García Perez, because it's her birthday today. So just that everybody here and outside also knows this special day. With this said, I will hand over to Iratxe to lay down our priorities for this session. Merci.
Thank you. Gracias, Utai. Gracias a todos vosotros.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. Yes, it's a special day, but it's still a normal working day, and it's a tricky day as well. A difficult day, a time to remember many people who suffered from the attack on the 7th of October, the Hamas attack. So I'd like to start by commemorating this day. 2 years ago, the brutal terrorist attack means that today we have to remember the victims, their families, and we have to call for the release of all hostages. But today also marks 2 years since the massive and unjustified attack by Israel on the people of Gaza. Now, there have been recent efforts towards a ceasefire in Gaza, and I believe the EU should be leading this process. And of course, that's not the case. That's not happening. We cannot wait any longer for peace, and any peace plan for the region has to put a stop to the massacre which is underway in Gaza. It should lead to the immediate release of all hostages and allow for humanitarian aid to reach the population, and it must be a two-state solution that recognizes the state of Palestine. Our position has not changed. In light of the genocide underway in Gaza, and we have to suspend the association agreement with Israel. We have to implement an arms embargo and continue to provide funds for Gaza. And yesterday in the debate in the hemicycle, as I said, we cannot ignore the hundreds of thousands of voices, people who are taking to the streets in Europe, people who are mobilizing across Europe. It's something that we haven't seen for years, from Paris to Amsterdam, Berlin, Madrid. We've seen protests across Italy, in Rome, Milan, across the EU. Citizens are crying out, calling on their politicians, European politicians, to say, your silence, it means you are complicit in the death of thousands of innocent citizens, women, children. You are destroying a people and destroying the hope that two countries such as Palestine and Israel can live side by side in peace. And that is our responsibility here today. We have to stand strong. We have to call on the European Commission and on member states to put a stop to this. No country, however powerful they are, should be able to carry out the type of massacre that we're seeing today in Gaza. So I believe that we need to commemorate this day by providing our support to the victims of the Hamas terrorist attack, but also we shouldn't forget that this has given rise to an unjustified escalation of violence by a genocidal government. It must stop now. Of course, we will have a debate this afternoon, and I will take the floor along these lines. There's another important debate today, or this week, on the joint response to recent Russian aggressions and the attacks on EU infrastructure by Russia, because this has laid bare the lack of reaction from the EU and NATO. We're not talking about isolated incidents now, but yet another tactic to test the EU's capacity to respond in a united manner. We need to react immediately. We need to be strong. We need to be united and proportionate in order to protect our citizens, because there's yet another point that worries the majority of our citizens in Europe. We have to show that we have the military and defense capabilities in Europe. This is something that we're working on. We've been working on over the last few months, over the last year. And we need to continue along this path. We have to remain strong and express our support to Ukraine. We cannot be intimidated by the continued hostile attacks and Russian aggression. The Kiev government has the right to defend itself, and this includes reacting to the attacks from the Russian territory. Then frozen Russian assets. Last week, the Council discussed this. It's absolutely central for us in the Socialist Party. We'll continue to call for the use of Russian frozen assets to rebuild Ukraine. We believe that we are heading in the right direction, and this should happen soon. Then on the other points, which warrant greater interest, the work and debates under this week, I would like to refer to the directive on the mandate in the European Parliament to launch interinstitutional negotiations and the process thereof. I would like to say something to all the pro-European parties in this Parliament. We should launch interinstitutional negotiations on the best practices negotiations. We need to improve the life of young people working for work experience and the traineeships directive. I think this is important. This is something which young people across Europe can do and allows them to really feel part of the European project. This is something which is missing at the moment. There are many young people who are working, who are carrying out traineeships, but completely unpaid. And in many cases, they're being exploited by businesses as unpaid labor. And this is a real priority for our group, promoting and supporting a directive or EU legislation that tackles this issue, because we cannot support youth exploitation. We need clear guidelines and clear quality standards to ensure that traineeships, these experiences, allow for an easy access to the workplace. Then there was a vote in the Ample and Social Affairs Committee, so I believe that the Parliament can launch negotiations with the Council on this matter. Now, I'm happy to answer any questions.
We start with the lady, Laura, first, and then Max.
Hola, buenos días.
Hello. I'd like to ask you about the debate on the motion for censure. There are a lot of questions put to the left on Gaza, the inability to negotiate, rather than what we heard in July, where the accusations were thrown at the EPP party and the right. I was wondering whether your relationship with the EPP has changed over the summer. Are you more willing to negotiate on legislation, whether your relationship is improving, and how you are tackling this new stage? Well, in my speech, I tried to react to the motion of censure, which has been tabled. We're dealing with two at the moment, one from the far right, which clearly we've expressed our opposition. We cannot support a motion for censure from the far right. They wanted to completely destroy the European project, so we'll never work with them. But of course, we needed to react to the left motion as well. They're completely entitled to table a motion. It's a democratic instrument, part of our parliamentary work here. I want to make that very clear indeed. It's a possibility open to everybody, and the left has the right to present such a motion. But of course, each group has to decide on its own strategy how you want to carry out, what direction you want to take your work during a mandate. It's nothing new if I were to tell you that the left's strategy is one where they set out their ideological table. They are somewhat critical, but when it comes to reaching political agreements, we may not be able to negotiate with them. On the one hand, we have the left, which wants to make certain statements, which wants to stand firm on their political positions, and then we have a left which is always in opposition, and then there's a left wing which can govern, which wants to govern. We want to govern. That's the socialists. We're the left that wants to govern, and governing means making compromises, making concessions. So sometimes we make concessions so that on other occasions we can get our own way. Now, we made a reference to what our political group was doing over the last few months since the beginning of this mandate. What we're trying to do is negotiate a social agenda for Europe. We are trying to negotiate a fair social agenda for Europe, negotiating an agenda of peace for Europe. Now, that's what the Socialists and Democrats have been doing over the summer. That's what we've been doing, discussing and negotiating with the European Commission. But I was also very critical. I was saying this didn't mean a blank check for anybody. We are working and negotiating on several fronts now, the omnibus, the Commission's work programme, and we want to see an outcome here. We want to see results because that's why we negotiate. So that's why we cooperate, to see results. We want to solve the problems faced by our citizens. And if we ensure that the EU has a valid, a serious plan to allow young people access to affordable housing, for example, I think that's we've achieved something. We want to ensure that social Europe exists, a fair Europe, an equal Europe that fights against climate change. That's our job. That's our responsibility. I've always said this, that there are times where negotiations are more effective. Sometimes there's more tension. Sometimes we're able to discuss and make compromises. But I think that what's clear is since the beginning of this mandate, our group has remained firm. We want to be constructive, responsible, critical. We want to get results. And one of those results has already seen the light. Or do you think it's a complete accident, that a coincidence that the Commission has partially suspended the association agreement with Israel? The Commission President didn't just wake up one day and think that it was time to put this to the Council. No, that's not how it works. She suggested this because of the hard work done by the Socialists during negotiations. Do you think it's coincidence that the Commission President, in the State of the Union discussion, said that she was going to implement an access to housing, where they were going to renegotiate social subsidies? No, it's complete. It's not chance. It's not a coincidence. That's a result of our hard work. So it's up to you. Everyone decides how they work, the approach they take. So we're going to continue to work aware of our responsibilities, and we will be critical when we need to be so. And we expect results. This is not a blank check. Then we go.
Gracias. Primero de todo, moltes felicitats, ¿no? Es tu cumpleaños. Segundo.
Firstly, happy birthday. It's your birthday. But I know the Commission President's birthday is tomorrow, so perhaps you could say a few words for her tomorrow. Perhaps happy birthday, I don't know.
Asking about the actual policy questions, I wanted to ask about the work program and the negotiations. I wanted to understand if you're also trying to have some sort of political statement, resolution, sort of solidifying the platform. And then, on the other hand, I wanted to ask about the MFF. The Socialists have come out strong against the national plans. EPP is negotiating this week with the Commission to see a bit what they do. Are you also meeting with the Commission? Are you open to accept these national plans if there are certain changes? How's the situation looking? And by when will you know fully whether you'll withdraw or not? Thanks.
Gracias, Max. Hoy no voy a
Thank you, Max. Well, I'm not going to say happy birthday to Madame von der Leyen today because it's bad luck. You can't say happy birthday if it's not someone's birthday, but I will do it tomorrow. I've wished her happy birthday every year since she became president for the European Commission because it's easy to remember. It's easy to remember somebody's birthday when it's the day after your own birthday. Now, on the Commission work programme, of course, we're working hard on this, trying to influence the direction it takes and ensure that our political objectives are included. We're working on this with the European Commission, with the rest of the groups that are part of the platform. And what we hope is that once the Commission's work programme has been presented, we are available and we hope we're in a position where the Parliament has a majority which can support the Commission's work programme. So let's go step by step. Firstly, it's important to ensure that before the draft is presented, it includes a lot of our priorities, and this is something we then will have to work in the Parliament with other groups to try and defend the institutional position, the position of the Parliament. There will be things that weren't included in the initial draft, but we hope during the negotiations they can be included. Then on the MFF, it's true that we've been talking about a possible rejection of the MFF this week, or at least the national plans in any case. And I want to repeat what we said as a group already. Two key issues here. Firstly, the Socialists does not agree with the new structure for the national plans for several reasons. On the one hand, because it means a renationalisation of European policies, the one we're very familiar with, the cohesion policy, the CAP. These are two purely European projects, and with these national plans, we hand them back over to the member states, both the design thereof and the allocation of funds. Secondly, we disagree because this means we lose in accountability. This Parliament loses some of its responsibility for oversight of these issues, the distribution and attribution of funds. And then thirdly, macro-conditionality. These funds are earmarked for reforms, which we agree with reforms, yes, but we want to remind you that the impact of the Troika a few years ago now, where this led to cuts in pensions, public services, education, the health sector, and we completely disagree with this level of conditionality, macro conditionalities. We agree with social conditionality, yes. We agree with environmental conditionality, but not economic macro conditionality. And from that point, concerns begin to arise. If we have a budget which is the same or even smaller, which cannot be adapted, which has not been indexed to inflation, well, of course, this is necessarily going to lead to cuts. This, of course, means we're in a position we may have to reject the national plans. And what we hope now is that we can discuss this and negotiate with other groups, because what is very clear is that we're very aware that the MFF has to be influenced by the pro-European parties here in this chamber, and we are very aware that we'll have to await the outcome of negotiations with the political groups to see what our position is. If once all political groups have identified their position on the national plan, then we can start to negotiate. But for the time being, we have to wait and see what stance all the political groups take. For the time being, we don't know what they are. The EPP has not yet expressed its position formally. Once they do so, we are more than happy to work together and negotiate with other political groups so we can identify where there is common ground to defend the European budget.
I'm really sorry, we have to close because the next group is waiting outside, so maybe we can take your questions outside. Thank you very much, Iratxe. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Channel 2, English.